Last week, I took a big bite out of the Nesting Bowls of Belonging infographic, central to emotional health and emotional development. And I talked about family attachment relationships, which germinate personal belonging. But how do schools continue to support belonging in kids? Remember, the grand plan is to belong and then be your authentic self and become even more. Development is the grand plan, not just learning. Yes, we all learn from experience, but learning is not enough. Learning about belonging is not belonging. Feeling like you belong in many situations over long periods of time growing up. Now, that is developmental belonging. It grows from the inside out. As an experienced teacher myself, I know kids can catch up in learning. But catching up in development is tricky because development is about readiness, and development needs the right environment. I am Devin Wolf of wolfwisdom.ca, and I've worked in schools as a teacher for 20 years and a school administrator and psychologist for 20 more. I use infographics like this one about the nesting bowls of belonging to teach an emotion-focused approach. So let me break this visual down. And I'll start in the center green bowl. I put 3 overlapping rings in the center, and this is the biopsychosocial medical model of health, made popular in the 1980s. Overall, the biopsychosocial model is a functional lens, and a functional lens of health asks, how does the body function? How does the mind function to promote health? And how do social supports function in the illness and health of this person? The biopsychosocial model examines the person, but as you will hear, development relies heavily on the environment. At least the biopsychosocial model was a big step in the body-mind-spirit connection direction. But this big step took enormous pressure from theory building decades prior. Attachment theory foundations were being built in the 1950s, and that's a developmental lens. And then the Ecology of Human Development model was introduced in the 1960s with a structural lens. So this is Bronfenbrenner's Ecology of Human Development model. And he compared the environment for human development to a forest ecology, where plants, animals, and environment are interdependent. In schools, the ecosystem is people in places, in activities together. Bronfenbrenner's Ecology of Human Development begins with these one-to-one relationships or micro-relationships, and every child or teen is in many, many micro-relationships at once. There's a parent-child relationship or teacher-student, or sibling and sibling, or friend to friend. In micro-relationships, each individual can impact the development of the other person. So children impact the development of adults to be better parents and teachers, just like adults support development in kids. But a micro-relationship only becomes a developmental relationship when emotions, influence, and sharing come together in good patterns over time. More positive emotions means more feelings of belonging and more potential for development. More influence by the child on the activity means more development of the authentic self and more development generally. More back and forth pattern of sharing means more development. So developmental relationships kind of have a sequence of 3 pieces. One, it begins with simple tasks, like, for example, digging in the garden or planting a seed. And then these simple tasks are combined into complex tasks, like planting a garden or learning about propagating and being able to harvest. And then the third piece is the development of deep personal meaning to value organic food or value growing your own food. So that's the development part. So did you catch those 3? Here's another example. Holding the wiggly worm is a simple beginner task, but using fishing tackle and canoeing safely are lots of simple tasks adding up to complex tasks. And then belief that rivers need protection is the deep personal meaning that comes out of development. Overall, the more micro relationships with joint activity in complex tasks, the more potential for deep personal meaning in development to be your own unique, authentic self. But here this morning, there is no development if the relationship has a pattern of negative emotions, or influence becomes a power struggle, or if we lose the back and forth character of sharing. These three negative patterns indicate there is no potential for development in that particular micro relationship unless the negative patterns change. So we can reset those patterns. It's not too difficult. We need to bring back the fun and get playful for positive emotions. We need to allow the child to take charge in the activity at times, to influence the activity and influence us. And then also, we need to take turns or reverse roles for that back and forth sharing. But there's more yet to this model. And so Bronfenbrenner talks about micro relationships affecting everyone else in the family or classroom, because all the micro relationships of one person are linked to the micro relationships of others simply because we talk to each other. When kids and parents talk in positive ways about school, the ecology of development is protected. Positive talk links kids to their natural curiosity and motivation to participate. Positive talk is the power of the whole village, linking students to understanding the demands of school, trusting in teachers, and participating in complex activities. At school, teachers link kids to kids so they can enjoy each other, build trust in each other, and learn through complex activities together. Links are the chatter in the virtual cell phone attachment village that kids need to trust new settings they will have to grow into, like middle school or high school, or workplaces full of new micro relationships and a much bigger web of links. So relationships and links are always part of the real world. And Bronfenbrenner's model explains three more systems. The exosystem is external to relationships and links. This is exo, it's external. Yet the exosystem pressures children and teens directly and indirectly. And here's some examples. Economic structures of living expenses can price families out of opportunities for their kids. Institutional structures like policies and funding can be inclusive or discriminatory in schools. And power structures of institutions like government can open lines of communication or just add layers of paperwork and approvals. And then a larger nesting bowl is the macrosystem, consisting of pressures from subcultures and our whole culture. Although Bronfenbrenner didn't imagine all of the pressures that we feel today at the intersections of like lifestyle choice, gender and race, victimization, or even like the generations of trauma in our history or marginalized populations. But you can add to this list. He knew pressures would keep emerging over time. So in fact, he had to add that final touch of the largest mixed nesting bowl of all. And that is what he calls the Chronosystem, time. Because human development takes its own sweet time. The Chronosystem influences reflection on our past to challenge the way we've always done things around here. So just to review, the microsystem is relationships. The mesosystem links people and places in activities. The exosystem is the external power structures and institutions. The macrosystem is pressure from culture. Culture pressures us to make changes or to think things over. Think hard about lifestyle choices or equity of opportunities and caring for each other. And the chronosystem explains the influence of time, past, present, or future, to view human development in its own time frame. It has its own time frame. And so that is the crazy whirlwind, tiny taste of another way to view development and belonging. This is a structural lens to view the ecology of human development, encompassing belonging, being authentic, and becoming more. But it does make me wonder if schools have been living a half-life of potential without a structural lens. Because, like Tokopah Turner says, most of us develop on a bias because of the cultural expectations and projections onto the sex we have been assigned at birth. And aren't we also biased by how society defines race, intelligence, physical ability, cultural caste, or social acceptance? But you can add to that list too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this material. I believe our presence is powerful in the life of a child, and that's why I love this topic of emotional development. We'll talk again.